Hello guys, today I'm bringing you a different build for the Dusk Mage class. This one is called the Beam Melter or the Beamer build by me. It's basically a build centered around Holy Fury, Dark Spears and Radiant Blast. I've also added Consecration and Luminous Run as I do in all my mage builds. And I've added Energy Spike to help charge up the white bar fast, but Entropy can do that well enough. Don't mind the skill levels you're seeing here. Those are just so that I can have every skill leveled up, but I'll show you later on in the skill choices section of this video what skills at what levels are suggested for the build. We're using Dark Spears and Holy Fury for the 100% slow combo, which will be nerfed later on in a future patch to 80% slow. We're using Radiant Blast for when the monsters come close, but you can just demote it to a passive only or not level it up at all. I like it because it gives a lot of damage for Radiant Blast when you level it up, and it also gives you Dark Spear's duration increase, which is pretty neat, so you can have 3 instead of just 2 Dark Spears at the same time. So stay tuned, check the different skill choices followed by the gear choices, and at the end with a demo for the build gameplay. You can skip any section you don't like. I also put timestamps in the description, so feel free to check those. And here we go. So let's go through the skill choices first. As I said, Holy Fury is an essential part. It's the main damage dealing skill of this class, of this build, especially when we are facing bosses. So Holy Fury would be level 12. We also have Dark Spears as level 12, Consecration is level 12, Luminous Run is level 12, and Radiant Blast and Energy Spike is level 12. Then I've added some different choices for the passives, but let's first go through why I chose those skills as the core skills of the build. First of all, Holy Fury and Dark Spears have good synergies, which is Light skills mana cost and Dark skills mana cost. Both of those skills slow up to 50%, which stacks to 100, although this is getting changed because currently you can get 100% slow on a monster, but with an upcoming patch or hotfix there will be an increased, not increased, but let's say decreased slow percentage to 80% maximum. Which is still awesome, it's still amazing. 80% slow is basically almost the same as 100. Yeah, of course the monster would be moving, but very slowly. Consecration is there mostly because of the skill itself. It's an amazing buff for you and the group. The damage will skyrocket. Well, not skyrocket, but it will be quite an amazing kind of damage that you'll be outputting. Luminous Run is there for movement, escape, and the relic weapon damage synergy that comes with it is also always welcome. As for Radiant Blast, most people may not even want this in the build. I decided to put it mostly because of the synergy with Dark Spears, as well as the amazing damage you can do with this skill once it maxed out and once you have enough damage to white skills from Unholy Bolt. Unholy Bolt, I decided to go for this skill to increase the damage of those two skills as well as Consecration's damage output. So Unholy Bolt level 12 is the first passive only skill. I'll add some text regarding what skills you might add to the build and change with other skills, such as getting level 12 Entropy for the white skill cooldowns, or something like getting Absolver at level 12 and Entropy 0. But Entropy got buffed, so I would suggest going for level 12 Entropy and level 0 Absolver. Absolver would give you dark bar charge gain. If you think you need dark bar charge gain more than light skills cooldown, sure, go ahead for it, but the light skills cooldown benefits Luminous Run and Consecration, as well as Radiant Blast. Of course, Holy Fury has no cooldown, so it won't benefit from it, but it's still advisable to get that skill. Something else that you might have in mind would be for the number 4 slot. If you don't like using Radiant Blast, of course you can demote it to a passive only skill and use Unholy Bolt or Holy Bolt or even Entropy or Absolver, whichever you prefer for this build. There's also an option to use Spirit Well. It's a good skill. It goes well with any build for extra DPS, and even the minions. I don't know if it's supposed to be that way, but the monsters try to attack the minions and the minions are invulnerable. If I were to balance this skill, I would make it so that the monsters don't attack those minions and ignore them, but the minions would still be able to body block them and surround the monster and some things like that. Both you can get for some dark skill damage, but I'd suggest not leveling up this skill unless you plan on doing damage with energy spike, like a lot of damage, and dark spears. The main damage is supposed to be Holy Fury, but if you want to make like more of a hybrid between using Energy Spike and Holy Fury, sure, go ahead for it. Energy Spike, I've put it because I think it's the best skill to charge the white bar, so that's why I've added it here. We want the white bar up all the time, because as much as you might have some luck with getting mana per sec regen items with more than 40% mana regen per second. While you're leveling, that may not be the case, and the mana regen from your gear may not be enough to keep sustaining Holy Fury while spamming some of the other skills. The idea would be to spam Holy Fury while the monsters are inside Dark Spears and keep them slowed while you're standing in Consecration, and as soon as a monster arrives close to you, you just use Radiant Blast. Or you can just go where the monster is and use Radiant Blast as the start of the build to push it away and then start with the combo. There's many options how you might go about with this. So next off, let's show you some of the gear choices. For the gear, I personally prefer to go for a more DPS oriented setup. I may not have currently on me all the nice items that you may need for such a build, but I'll just tell you some suggestions. So for the chest and legs, I always say go for something that gives you physical damage. I personally think it's better for a mage to just focus on the DPS instead of health, but if you want to go for more health, by all means do that. As you can see, I've managed to find something that gives me a lot of damage with a bit of health here and the same here. But even if you're unable to, or if you want to go for something with more HP, you might want to try something like, let me quickly check what could be found here. I think those legs. You can see that's 3 times the HP. So my HP from 29 would go to around 39, let's see, 1000 HP as you can see. But I'm gonna be losing some DPS, and that would be, my DPS is going all the way to 11,231 from 13,456 with just that 1,247 flat physical damage. The gloves and boots are the items that could modify skills such as energy cost for Holy Bolt, Dark Spears, duration I think, more damage for Unholy Bolt and stuff like that. You want things that modify all those skills here. Preferably stuff that modifies Holy Bolt, Dark Spears, Luminous Run, maybe Radiant Blast, but I'd go for things that modify Dark Spears, Luminous Run and Holy Fury. If I'm using Entropy instead of Energy Spike to build up my white bar, I would go for things that modify Entropy. Just to show you some various things, there's Absolver modifiers, there's, as you see, faster cooldown for Dark Spears, more damage for Unholy Bolt. There's things like Gear Luck, always try to get Gear Luck if you can, if you want to have good drops more often. While I leveled up, I always kept my gear work as high as possible, even though my items were like 5, 6, 7 levels out leveled from the content I was doing. I always kept my gear work on the gloves and on my head dress or helmet to the maximum I could, but now with the inclusion of additional bolts fired on shock and weapons and offhands that can give you chance to shock, I try to stack up this whenever I can on my character, so this is another good suggestion. So if you find good weapons with chance to shock and offhands with chance to shock and other gear like gloves with additional bolts 2 or 4, maybe you could try and use this. Some people have suggested from my previous build that knockback is good on any build, especially on energy spike centered builds. Yes, that is good, but it's very hard to find gear with knockback. But if you do, try, see if you like it. If you think it's worth taking, by all means take it. You're a mage, you want enemies to stay farther from you. If you're having troubles by killing the enemies before reaching you, sure, go ahead and get some knockback. Crit chance and crit damage builds are only good if you can keep your crit chance to, I'd say ideally over 30, but even something like this may not be that bad. Around 10 from the weapon and the offhand to get it to around 20, and 5 or 4.5 at least on the shoulder. This still doesn't make it enough as it was supposed to be 30 plus for a crit build, but it's better than nothing. Although 20 crit chance wouldn't justify swapping out the 5 crit chance on the shoulder for crit damage, but you can by all means try and see how it goes. Something like knockback resistance, I don't think it's really necessary. Your idea with a mage would be to not let the monsters even reach you, but there might be ranged monsters that knock back. So I'll just go for extra defense for that slot when possible, or things like extra burn duration if you're using a burning weapon. If you want to go for a crit chance build, I'd suggest using a weapon that does crit chance to burning and causes burning. It's a good choice, although a synergy for beamer build would be to go for something that freezes and chills to keep the enemies at bay. Something that also might be nice would be weapons that poison. And of course I said weapons that cause shock. So things like this stuff have always been nice while leveling. Stuff with critical hit chance versus poison targets. This would stack up well because the poison stacks up to 3 times. I try to avoid weapons with bleeding, but if you don't have anything better, it's still good. This is another version of item that causes critical damage to burning targets, critical chance to burning targets, and burns the enemies. Things that give you mana regen per second, try to get with this build at least 40%, so I wouldn't go for a staff build most of the time. I would prefer using a Digitus or a sword or whatever combined with focus with mana regen per second, that's at least 40%. As you level up you won't be getting that much, but try to get it as high as you can. I think maybe a good focus might be, where is it? This one, I think. No, this is also good when you're doing undead, but those are kind of situational. But this one is good because it gives you a lot of mana regen. Sad the energy cost for Holy Bolt, but you may get something better on that slot. For the pet items, I always say that try to get a chance to walk. It's better to walk more instead of have more HP or other bonuses for the pet. And for the tags, I usually go for little studs. If you can, try and get 2 little studs to stack up over 10% crit chance and over 4% crit damage on both of them for like 20 plus crit chance and over 80 crit hit damage on the pet. I think we went through everything. As for the relic weapon, everything is good. I personally prefer using a Bane weapon, but you can go for a Flaming Destroyer or Blood Drinker, whichever you can make first. If you specifically want to farm something first, I would suggest going for farming some cores for the Bane stuff. It's amazing, as you see later on when I'm showing the the gameplay demo. Speaking of which, let's move on to the gameplay demo. So here I am at a Mapworks map for level 50, showing you some gameplay with the build. You saw a bit of wagging there, because it's at the start of the map. So let's see what we can show you first. Basically, the main combo of the build is Dark Spears, to keep slowing the enemies and to keep spamming Holy Fury. With the way I've set up the build and the passive suggestions, if you max out Radiant Blast, you'll be able to have 3 instances of Dark Spears up at the same time. I'll show you now how I can stack up to 2 without doing that. Okay, let's keep spamming, As you can see, you have 2 of them running at the same time. So you'll be able to sustain having 3 of those running at the same time if you try to max out Radiant Blast. Mine is only level 2. At level 1 it dealt 48% weapon damage. I added one more level just right now because they added a fix that gave us the 100 skill point. And this added 10.5% extra weapon damage. If that is the amount of damage we are getting for each level, that means those 11 levels above that would give me 10.5 times 11, which would be pretty nice. So this skill would have a lot of weapon damage as the tooltip once it's done. Let me show you what I mean by why I want to use this skill for when enemies come closer.
Your pet has fled.
As you saw, we didn't do much damage now. And those are actually nimble monsters, so they have high attack speed. But I've seen it deal like 1/3 of the monster's HP. Thankfully it's not a double HP map, so let's try and stack it up with Consecration when we can. The idea is this is not a skill that you're gonna use for max damaging the enemies all the time. It's just a skill to use when the enemies get too close, if they manage to get close. Or if you just want, you can do something like this, using Consecration, then Radiant Blast, and then just try to use your Dark Spears and Holy Fury combo. Try again to keep the Dark Spears up. As you can see, we kinda melted those. It could have been better, of course. I currently, as you saw, I have some skill points in skills I don't want to because I'm showing different builds. So I need at least level 1 on every skill for the time being. When they add a skill respect system, I'll change that and I'll be able to properly showcase those builds later on. So why I wanted the energy spike was just to fill up the white bar. You saw just those few monsters gave me almost like 60% of this bar. We're sadly on a map that doesn't have many monsters because it's an undead populated map, but we did manage to get this holy charge for faster energy regeneration, which was why I think this build needs energy spike. It's a good skill just for damaging. I mean, you can check my first mage build, the spiker build, and see what I mean. It's one of the best skills in the game currently. It's one of the best builds in the game currently. But if you don't feel like playing it,
Your pet has
as I said, you can try and replace it with Entropy. And just to do a test, I haven't tested Entropy since it was added. Let's try and replace Entropy on the spot where we had energy spike. Okay, there wasn't a mimic here. Thankfully they fixed those. I really enjoy killing mimics. So let's try and check the Entropy first without the... Yeah, it's not so bad. But I couldn't see how far my bar was before I used Entropy. As you can see, this is a 50 map, level 50 frontier and a level 100 character, so it's kind of maxed out like end game wise. Dark Spears can be very powerful by itself when it's maxed out, especially when you have this shrine and when you have Shrine of Might. I don't have anything that poisons, so let's use my relic weapon. My damage will be very bad when using that weapon because it's only level 22. But you can see those both showing up. This is a mimic. You can tell that it's a mimic if you can attack it and knock back it and stuff like that before you open it. So that's a hint for you guys. When you see those chests and when you're not sure whether it's gonna be a mimic, just try to attack it, see if your pet is attacking it if it's nearby. Let me try and see if I can find a weapon that poisons. I don't think I've got one. Also, don't use attack speed on a mage. You don't need attack speed on the mage, it won't help with your casting speed. So avoid that on the mage class, but it's very good for realm masters and forged classes. Okay, let's try and build that white bar. Okay, I think 3 casts of Entropy were enough to build that bar for me. And let me quickly show you what will happen if we use Spirit Well, just so you see some various options of what you can put in this slot. You can also use the Spirit Well instead of Radiant Blast, so maybe that's what we should do. Let's try it that way. So here I probably should have used Dark Spears and Consecration, something like this. Those are double HP monsters on this map, so keep that in mind as well. And what is this shrine? It's Shrine of Healing, okay. That just shows some bit of entropy stacking up with Spirit Well, Consecration and Dark Spears. Keep in mind those are undead, so I don't have much physical defense, if any at all. That's why they're doing so much damage to me. Although I'm a mage, I'm supposed to be squishy, but in this game there is no such a thing. You can be squishy if you decide not to use HP, armor and block chance weapons and shields. But even then the mage is kind of as squishy as the other classes, it's not more squishy than them. So there is no actual pure glass cannon. In a way, being glass cannon can be done for every class if you just take some damage here and ignore all the defensive gear bonuses. Try to focus on getting as much DPS as possible from each piece of armor. Okay, I'm just trying to play around, show you some different versions of how to use this build. As I said, I'd ideally go for level 1 Holy Bolt, or whatever level you might need it to, but probably level 1 is enough to unlock those, and then you can spend some skill points on those. And this build is nice because it can shine early on. You can max out Holy Fury early on, you can try to max out Luminous Run later on, but you can also get Entropy early on. Although I'd suggest maxing out Unholy Bolt as soon as you can. Maybe your priority should be maxing out Unholy Bolt and Holy Fury. And since this will give you mana cost reduction, if you think you need it, max this one first. If you don't think you need it, max this one first. And then move on to maxing out things like maybe Dark Spears. Although I'd suggest unlock Dark Spears and Consecration as soon as you can. So maybe just don't use Consecration yet for the start. So get one level here. Keep pumping in Holy Fury or Unholy Bolt. As soon as you unlock Entropy and Dark Spears, just put 1 point in them to just get the core build set up. And then later on, when you can, maybe either experiment with using Energy Spike or just ignore it and put Entropy here and put the skill points into something different, such as, let's say, Spirit Well or something like that. As for the gameplay, I'll skip quickly to the boss after this fight here, because it seems like a fun fight to show you. As you can see, they kinda melted without me even spamming much of the damage. And why Entropy is good for the blast, for the Radiant Blast and Holy Fury combo. Because you can do something like I just did. You put Dark Spears, you put Consecration, you put the Spirit Well Portal. Ah, it's not allowing me to put it? That's a buff I've been having since yesterday. I'm pumping my number 4 and it didn't want to cast the skill. I had mana, I had all the things, but basically the combo is put Consecration, put Dark Spears, put the Spirit Well, hit one Entropy, start beaming, hit another Entropy, start beaming. You can use Shift to make sure the Entropy is getting casted. And while you're beaming, Entropy is actually shooting out bolts, so it synergizes very well with such a build. Now actually we're already at the boss lair, let's go in. No point to skip to it. And let's try this combo on the boss.
Your mana is low.
Okay. You can see it was kind of nice, even with the level 1 Spirit Well. Pretty nice, pretty fast. And all over kind of worth it. So that was it for this build. If you have any suggestions or if you think maybe there's another way to do the build, please say it in the comments because someone might think your way of doing that build is good. Remember, I'm just making some suggestions. I'm not telling people to play this build exactly as it is. It's just a suggestion for those who have no idea how and where to start off, and if they want to do a beam build instead of the typical spiker build. So thank you again for watching this video. If you like the video, subscribe, like it, share it and spread the word. I'll keep the build videos coming one a day until I'm done with all 9 or 10 videos I've got planned. Tomorrow I'll be doing the Conductor of Flames build for the Realm Master. Thank you again for watching and keep it cool, guys. Goodbye.